Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're going to be taking a look at Thundrik's Profiteers, one of the latest warbands for Warhammer Underworlds, coming in along with Ilthari's Guardians for the Sylvaneth. So these Katophrane Overlords are a band of mercenary pirates and are interestingly a shooting warband in Warhammer Underworlds. They don't have a ton of melee offense capability, and a lot of their cards dig into making their shooting better, or at least more effective in kind of controlling where the enemy warband goes. So I think it's going to be interesting, a blend of the cards from Ilthari's Guardians, and you can watch the review for that if you click up above into the cards. And these fellas should give for a really interesting sort of different gameplay experience in Warhammer Underworld. So let's check out the cards. We're going to go through all of the characters, all of the like faction-specific cards, and then all of the universal upgrades, ploys, and gambits as well. So let's take a look at it all right now. All right, so here's Thundrik's Profiteers, the Katophrane Overlord expansion warband for Warhammer Underworld's Night Vault. We got Bjorgen Thundrik and his crew of Skyfarers, and they of course lost in the city of Shadespire as well. Let's take a look at the cards, and then we'll jump in and go through all of the faction specific ones and then the generic universal ones as well, one type at a time. So first we've got Bjorgen Thundrik. He's your leader. No mage this guy, no mages in this group at all. He's just a gunner and a fighter. So he's got 2 squares of movement. He is slow as a tree. 1 defense die with looking for shields, and then 4 wounds. He's got a 3 range, 2 hammer, 1 damage attack, which is atmospheric anatomizer, and then heavy instruments. He's got weapons to hit you with a 1 square range, 2 hammers, and 1 damage. He's got promotion. Each time you score an objective, if this fighter's in the battlefield, you can choose a friendly fighter and they become inspired. So if you can kill the leader, these guys can't inspire, which is pretty ugh. And then reaction, use this after this fighter's activation. The next activation, enemy fighters treat hexes adjacent to them as lethal. So he basically sets the area around him on fire, which is a pretty cool defense, which explains why he's so pillow-fisted. When he inspires, his range attack does 2 damage, his melee attack's the same, and then he's 3 squares of movement, 2 defense dice, and 5 wounds. He actually gains a wound when he inspires, which is pretty cool. His reaction and promotion both stay the same. So he's neat, but yeah, pretty pillow-fisted in the beginning. You got Deadeye Lund, which is Mr. Gunbot here, so that's Bjorgen, in this weird pearlescent kind of white gold, gold plastic. And then this is Deadeye Grun, Deadeye Lund, sorry, with his big blunderbuss. No melee attack. He's only got a 3 square, 2 hammer, 1 damage cleave attack with his gun. And then he's 2 squares of movement, 1 shield, 3 wounds. No reaction, but when he inspires, he goes to 2 damage with also cleave, and then 3 squares of movement, 1 and 4 damage. So they all gain a wound when they inspire, but again, no reaction or anything like that. You've got Enric Ironhail with his little minigun, his little like repeater rifle. 3 range, these guys are all guns. 3 range, 3 swords, 1 damage, knockback 1. Has a dodge, 2 moves and only 2 wounds. No reaction. And when he inspires, knockback 1, 4 becomes more accurate. 4 swords to hit. And then an extra wound and an extra move. But again, no extra damage. So these guys are all just pushing you around with their guns, doing little bits of damage. Gerard Allenson, he's got his cutter, which is a 1 range, 2 hammers, 1 damage. And then his privateer pistol, which is a 3 range, 2 swords, 1 damage. Got a single dodge, 2 squares of movement, 2 wounds, no reaction. He inspires to an extra damage on his cutter. No, wait. Yeah, extra damage on his cutter, that's right. And then 3 swords on his privateer pistol. 3 moves, 1 extra wound. And then you got Kazgan Drakskewer. This is the floaty guy. 3 wounds, 4 squares of movement. He's fast for a dwarf. 1 shield to block. And then 2 range, 2 hammer, 2 damage Sky Pike. And then his Vulcanizer pistol is 3 range, 2 swords, and 1 damage. This fighter treats lethal hexes as normal hexes, can move through occupied hexes, but can't move land on them because he floats. And then again, no reaction, but his damage goes up to 3 on the Sky Pike. And then he is 4 wounds, 4 square hex movement, and single shield to defense. This is kind of your hitting piece. He has a range attack still, but he can actually do some damage in melee if you beef him up too with things like great strength. So let's go through the faction deck, starting with some ploys. No faction spells, obviously, because these guys are dwarves. They are not wizards. Seek the Sky Vessel. Choose 2 friendly fighters and make a move action with each of them. So you can move ploys. That's neat. Prepared position, choose a friendly fighter that does not have a guard token and give him a guard, much like the one for Stormcast. Unyielding, friendly fighters cannot be driven back in the next activation, pretty cool. Atmospheric Isolation, play this if there's a surviving friendly Thundrik, no more power cards can be played until after the next activation. He just decides that you don't play power cards anymore. Etheric Augmentation, the first attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has +1 die. Because again, this will move into the pushing tech these guys have with all the range attacks pushing people around. Time Charge, reaction after a friendly Drac Skewer's move action that begins adjacent to any enemy fighters. Roll attack die and a roll of hammer or crit that take a damage. So when he floats over, basically, he does a little poke with his spear. Quiet Contemplation, choose one, draw a power card, or discard an objective card, and then draw an objective card. So you can use that to cycle your hand, which is nice. Protect the Boss, choose a friendly fighter and push them up to 2 hexes. So they're adjacent to the leader. Nice push ability. So you can drag too. If you move first with the boss, you can then push afterwards. Toxic Gas, choose an enemy fighter. That fighter's player must make a choice. Either take a damage or push them 2 hexes. Either run away from the smoke or they take damage and choke. Ambitious Attack, +1 damage to the first attack action with a range of 1 or 2 made by a friendly fighter in the next activation. So the short range guns can become higher damage. Rapid Reload, reaction. After this fighter's first Aethermatic volley gun attack in the round, they can make the attack action again. So 2 shots from Iron Hail. That's pretty cool. He gets to do it twice because he never does more than 1 damage unless you play a card like that ups the damage. Swashbuckler, +1 die to this fighter's attack action with a range of 1 or 2. So that's for Allenson, the sword fighter with the pistol. Empowered Aether Shot, Allenson or Iron Hail can have this one. So either pistol guy or repeater guy. The attack action of this fighter's card with a range of 3 or more has Cleave. Oof, that's nice for the repeater gun. Especially if you're getting him to fire twice and get bonus damage. Ancestral Might, +1 damage. This fighter's attack action with a range of 1 or 2. So it's basically your own little great strength, but you can add it to guns as well. The pistol shots can do it. Ancestral Fortitude. Actually, sorry. You can't do that to any of the pistols because all of the pistols in this faction are range 3. I just realized when they're inspired. No, you could do it to Drake Skewer. That's who can take that one. +1 wound. That one's nice. Breath of Grogny. 3 square range. Again, so you wouldn't be able to do that augmentation to it. 3 swords, 1 damage, knockback 1. So you just get an extra shot on Thundrik if you want. Augmented Buoyancy, +2 move. You can give him move 4 or move 6 on Drake Skewer if you want. That's pretty awesome. Drake Skewer only. Lund. Punishing Retort, 1 range, 2 swords, 1 damage. Reaction during adjacent enemy fighter's attack action that drives this fighter back and fails. That targets this fighter and fails. This fighter cannot be driven back and makes this attack action and must target the attacker. So if you miss him, basically, he cracks you in the face. Paymaster on Thundrik. You can reroll 1 die each attack roll for friendly fighters adjacent to this fighter. That's pretty cool, actually, if you just put them in base to base. Make a gun line. Magmalt Draft, actually. Reaction during the attack action or gamut that will reduce this fighter. Discard this card. Reduce damage suffered by 1 to a minimum of 1. And we're on to specialty objectives. So faction objectives. Search the city. Score this in end phase if you hold 3 or more objectives for 2. That one's nice. Stake a claim. Score in the end phase if all fighters in your territory and no enemy fighters are in your territory. With all the are in yours and there's nobody in yours. So that's a good one. With all the push that you have from all of your range attacks, able to drive people back, and there's a lot of knockback in there too. That should be pretty easy to actually do. Live by the code. Score this in end phase if you did not discard any objective cards in the preceding action phase. If you do, you cannot discard any objective cards in this end phase. So if you didn't get anything, you get 1. Headshot, score this immediately if a friendly fighter scores a critical hit with an attack action with a range of 3 or more. So even if you don't kill anybody, if you get the hit, you score 1. That's almost a no-brainer with these guys because there's so many times they're going to be shooting. Collect a bounty, score this in the end phase if your warband took an enemy leader out of action in the preceding action phase for 1. Focus fire, score this immediately in the third different, if the third different friendly fighter makes an attack action with a range of 3 or more targeting the same fighter this phase. So if you just keep shooting the same dude, I like it's literally a picture of Molag. It's so topical. It's ours now. Score this in end phase if 2 or more friendly fighters are in no one's territory. So if they're in literally just like if 2 or more friendly fighters are in no one's territory, if you're standing in the middle, basically. Seeking Advancement. Score this immediately if your Warband takes enemy fighter with a wound characteristic of 4 or more to action. So if you kill a big guy. And then Sound Finances. Score this in end phase if you have 5 or more unspent glory points. Because you're just not buying upgrades. Because you didn't need them. Alright, so let's look at the spells. So universal cards. You did get 3 new spell cards in here. You get the Sphere of Akshi, a Gambit spell on a lightning bolt. If this spell is cast, choose an enemy fighter with 4x to the caster and they take a damage. Amnesiac Backlash, reaction on a crit. Cast this spell after an enemy fighter casts a spell. If this spell is cast, that fighter suffers 1 damage and they can no longer cast spells. This spell persists until that fighter's out of action. Whoa! You can just break someone's brain and make it so they can't cast spells anymore. That's gross. Empathic Exchange, Gambit spell on a lightning bolt. If the spell is cast, choose a friendly fighter adjacent to the caster, take up to 2 wound tokens from the fighter's fighter card and put them on the caster's fighting card. So you just trade your damage. That could literally kill somebody. Like a low wound caster, like Zarbag, or even the Briar Queen could just die from some of the damage that casters could have on them. That's really funny. So we're into ploys. Let's have a look at some ploys here. And these are all universal. We have the Black Powder Sphere, so a grenade. So you can have a grenade now. Choose a hex other than a blocked hex within 3 hexes of a friendly fighter and scatter 1 from that hex, then roll an attack die. On a hammer or crit, any fighter in or adjacent to that hex suffers a damage because the grenade goes off. Aether Flux, until the next power step, spells that require lightning bolt instead require channel and vice versa. Magical Dearth, until the end of the power step, only rolls of crits or successes when a fighter attempts to cast a spell. Oof, that's gross too. Piling On, the first attack action with a range of 1 or 2 in the next activation has +1 damage for each supporting fighter after the first. That's really good for the Elthari Guardians with the upgrade on your bow girl, who always counts, as long as she's adjacent to a fighter, she always counts as supporting them. Shifting Reflection, choose a friendly fighter and an enemy fighter that are both holding objective and switch their positions. Stand and Shoot, reaction, play after enemy fighter move action that's part of a charge action. Choose an enemy fighter that is adjacent to them and make an attack action with that fighter that's a range of 3 or more. It must target the enemy fighter and that fighter cannot be driven back by this action. So you can't just like push them back. They can't be driven back, but I wonder if knockback still works. Because driving someone back and the knockback special rule, I think, are 2 different things. Unless knockback adds the drive back. I'll have to look that up. I'm not sure. Trading up. Choose a friendly fighter with at least 1 upgrade. Discard 1 upgrade from that fighter and apply another upgrade to that fighter from your hand. And that's it for universal ploys. Let's look at some upgrades. Blessing of Hadragos. Reaction after this fighter's attack action that succeeds. Push the fighter up to 2 hexes. That's pretty cool, especially for these guys where they're going to be shooting a lot. They can get mobile afterwards. Crown of Avarice. During an attack action or gambit that will take this fighter to action, choose an opponent and take up to 1 of their unspent glory points. I looked at the goblins on there too. It's like, whatever, give me your money. The Earthing Stone. If this fighter is standing on the objective token, the player's territory, in all player territory, so you couldn't do the ones in no man's land. No fighters in that territory are considered to be holding objectives. Oh man. Oh, that could be good. Hammer of Scorn. This is just an extra attack action with knockback of 2. And it's 1 hex range, 2 hammers, 2 damage. Hunter's Tenacity. Reaction after this fighter makes an attack action against an adjacent enemy fighter that drives them back. Push this fighter into the hex the other fighter was in. And then Nullstone Mace. It's an additional attack action with 1 range, 2 hammers, 2 damage. You can reroll up to 2 dice in the attack roll if the target's a wizard. So some anti-wizard tech. The Paradox Armor. When the target of attack action, this fighter counts rolls of dodges and hammers, and shields as successes, but does not count crits as successes or critical successes. So no more crits, but everything else is a success. Reinforced Armor. That orc is hilarious. The fighter takes no damage from attack actions with a damage characteristic of 1 unless they're a crit. He just doesn't take damage from 1 point damage. Oof. Ooh, that would really hamstring these guys a lot. The Tome of Healing. Action. Choose this fighter or an adjacent friendly fighter. Remove it to 1 wound token from that fighter's fighter card as an action. Just all the time healing. And then the Void Scepter. action, choose a persisting effect or spell that's affecting a fighter within 2 hexes, and they end. There you go. So there's some tech to get rid of all of those you take a wound until you die cards, or you can't cast spells anymore cards. I think the Void Scepter is going to get really popular with those other spells being in play now. Just being wounded until you die, and especially not being able to cast spells anymore, I think that's going to have to sit in your deck just to be a thing you can do to undo that, because that could really mess up your game if it happens early. Objectives. Biding your time. Score this in end phase if you have at least 1 fighter in the battlefield and your warband took no attack actions in the preceding action phase. Not bad for the first turn card if you draw it. Branching Fate. Score this immediately if you roll 3 or more dice in an attack or defense roll, and they all show a different symbol. That's a random one. That's not super valuable. Building Momentum. If you had a 1 dice attack, actually, that would do it. But you have to roll 3 more attack dice, so doesn't work. Building Momentum. Score in end phase if you score at least 2 other objective cards in this phase. Calculated Risk. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter makes a move action through a lethal hex that damages them but doesn't take them out of action. That could be actually really useful for these guys with his little gun if you're fighting a melee warband. Death from Afar. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter takes an enemy fighter out of action while at least 3 hexes away. So again, useful for them with all their guns. Every Trick in the Book. Score this in end phase. You have no power cards in your hand. Master of Mayhem. Score this immediately if you use your warband's 3rd action or a card that scatters in the same phase. So 3 different things that scatter have to happen in the same phase. So you could throw a grenade, unleash a fanatic, and do something else that scatters. Do the whirling defense in the same phase. And then Patient Commander. Score this in the 3rd end phase if you took a 2nd activation in each round. Took the 2nd activation in each round. So if you didn't go first each round, you get 3 in the 3rd end phase. Tax Supremacy 2 to 5. So hold 2 and 5 for 2. Tireless Slayer. Score this in end phase if a single friendly fighter took 3 or more enemy fighters out of action in the preceding action phase. Ugh, that's not easy to do, but could be cool. And then Versatile Fighter. Score this in end phase if the same friendly fighter made both an attack action with a range of 1 or 2 and an attack action range of 3 or more in the same action phase. So that one could actually be done by the stand and shoot card, which would be handy because someone charges you, you shoot your gun, and then you melee and you immediately score this one. So if you do, I mean, you could plan to have that one. Certain warbands could plan to have it, and it might be super handy. So there it is. We've got the sweet new cards in from Thundrik Profiteers and some great new models to paint up for your Warhammer Underworlds games. I'm pretty stoked about these guys. I've wanted to paint Katophrane Overlords for a long time. So I'm pretty jazzed that I have the excuse to just paint up literally 1 of each unit type too. Well, I really like that you just get a selection of like what the different units are. So I don't have to buy like 5 different boxes to paint these guys. I can just paint 1 of each and have my own little like AOS skirmish warband ready to rock and roll. I'm really hoping that this and the Sylvaneth are sort of a omen of things to come, that we're going to be seeing more Age of Sigmar stuff for the whatchamacallits, the Katophrane Overlords and the Sylvaneth going forward, because I love my Sylvaneth, and both those books could use an update coming in the near future. So I think the timing is good, and I'm really hoping my prognostication in the next month or 2, we'll maybe see some new stuff for AOS for those armies. So hope you enjoyed this look at the Thundrik's Profiteers, a really shooting heavy warband in Warhammer Underworlds, which is a pretty new thing. It's going to be interesting to see how they work. They seem like they're going to be very techy and push people around using their guns. With a big Slayer piece that can float around and get almost anywhere to do some damage. So it'll be interesting to see what people come up with for them. So if you enjoyed this, we'll see you for more GMG reviews in the future. Until next time, I'm Ash. Happy wargaming. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below so you get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Death Ray Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.